Well, hi, everybody. Welcome. We've still got some music playing in the background, but I'm Joe Miglio, and although it says a different college, I'm from Berklee College of Music, and I'm really delighted to be with you today and to be here with some of my colleagues to really begin to look at this idea of educational approaches that we need to make. So with that as an introduction, let me just do a quick round robin with my colleagues and have them be able to introduce themselves. Let me start with my roommate at Berklee College of Music, Todd Gardner.
Thank you, Joe. Good to see you. Good to see everybody here. I am an associate professor at Berklee College of Music. I teach areas in taxation, accounting, business startups, and an ICE class or design class startup lab, this journal.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Who do you want next, Joe? You just want us to hop in?
Yeah, I was going to say, Jason, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Dr. Jason Lee Guthrie. I teach at Clayton State University. We're kind of just south of Atlanta. And I am in the Communication and Media Studies department at my institution, but my presentation is related to a podcasting class that I taught in the fall, and times being what they were, had to teach completely online. My co-presenter, Stephen Patasik, is from Samford University in Birmingham, and I think he's on. Stephen, you want to? I think we're just doing quick introductions right now.
Yeah, hey everybody. My name's Stephen Patasik. I'm a professor and director of the commercial music program at Samford University in Birmingham. We have 4 concentrations: songwriting, music production, music business, and performance. And Jason and I did some work on presenting materials as it relates to teaching during this pandemic, and also had a good conversation with a panel yesterday about teaching music production specifically during the pandemic.
Rob, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Robert Willey. Thank you. I'm at Ball State University. I teach songwriting, computer music, music appreciation, history of rock and roll, senior projects, but my main music business class is I have 160 students in a survey of music industry and 95 producers.
Good afternoon. Hello, hello. Sorry, everyone. Having a little problem here. All right. We can resume. Thank you, Armin.
Feel free to introduce yourself next.
Okay, sure. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session of Educational Approaches and First-Year Strategies. We have an incredible guest list of panelists and researchers is going to share information about this topic. I am Stacy Merida, professorial lecturer at American University and recently appointed Assistant Dean of Diversity and Inclusion. And I'm not going to go into any details because of the time. I want us to get right into our panel discussion. And first thing we'll do is go ahead and hear a little bit from each of our esteemed panelists. So Fruzsina, I think, I'm sorry?
I was going to say maybe Fruzsina would like to introduce herself and she could begin then, Stacy. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I was just asking her to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hello, nice to meet you all. My name is Fruzsina, or Fruzsina, but no one can pronounce it. It's a very Hungarian name. So I'm from Hungary, and I'm into, currently I'm a PhD student in Budapest, Hungary, and I'm researching the relationship between music business courses and their relationship to the labor market. And that was that's the reason why I researched the motivation of students, why they apply for music business courses. It was rooted in a debate that happened in 2019 in Vienna at the Ideo conference, and it was very interesting to find answers to that question, why students do enroll.
Excellent. Thank you so much, and it's an honor to have you here. And I'm sorry that when I jumped in, I thought I'm not sure if someone else had already introduced themselves or was next in line. Everyone is done? Great.
Correct.
Thank you, Armin. Thank you so much for that technical glitch. Well, I wanted to first just have everyone to kind of go around and just give the salient points. I hope everyone was able to review the videos of the presentations. And if you would take, I would say 2 minutes just to give a complete overview. And for those who are just joining us maybe more recently and have not had an opportunity, I highly encourage you to do so, because it's some incredible information that I think would be beneficial to all of us as educators going forward. So Todd Gardner, if we could begin with you. And in your 2-minute overview, there are a couple of things that I really thought that stood out was your findings on design thinking, about the approaches within that. So if you could just kind of give us a little highlight.
Sure.
So our audience will probably have questions or formulate questions, and we'll go back and do our Q&A after everyone kind of gives those 2 minutes. Okay?
Sure. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Nice to meet you, Stacy. So my background actually is law. I practiced as an attorney for over 20 years, but I'm also a musician, and I've always tried to be a little bit more creative out of the box, even my approach and practice of law. And so several years ago, I stumbled across and took a couple classes called Ideo in Cambridge, which is based out of the thinking that came out of Stanford and D school. And it basically comes down to 5 component kind of design thinking parts that most people kind of agree with. So it's not a curriculum, it's more of a language that you learn as you conduct your classes. So we've been in this challenging year, and I run Startup Lab and I do accounting. So it's a very diverse group that's listening, and it's also my courses are diverse as well. I mean, I do a business journal with some students. I consult, as a couple of you do outside of Berklee, and music related things. I've got a group of international composers tomorrow interested in collecting money, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a way that I can kind of conceptualize something that then I can go deep on, and I can kind of come up with maybe more out of the box thinking or creative solutions. So the 5 basic components that most everybody agrees upon is it starts, and a lot of this is simple, it's basic, but it's a reminder of things to think about. The first thing is empathy. You start with empathy. What is the foundation? This is human centered. And so we want to identify those users. We want to observe them. We want to engage with them. We want to be in their shoes. We want to immerse with them. We want to look for emotions. We want to have this kind of beginner's mindset, if you will. So the first thing always in design approach is who's your stakeholder, and then get in their shoes. I mean, just to simplify it. The second thing is then once you've done that, what were your findings? And it gets critical here to ask the right question. You want to design a question and frame that question from a point of view, and not general, but specific for this particular person who you're designing for. What is the design question? Because the richer, the more specific the question is, the better the outcome is going to be. Then at that point, you ideate. At this point, we want to go broad. We don't want to go narrow. We don't want to focus. We want to generate as many ideas as possible. And then from there, we get into prototyping, which is the fun part. We're going to go lo-fi. We're going to use Post-its. We're going to throw things on a board. We're going to use everything that we possibly can to kind of think that this is how we're going to solve it. Yes, but it may not be the actual. So the actual solution. We want to resist that solution. Then we're going to go back and test. So those are the things that kind of highlight what I'm talking about. Empathy, define, ideate, prototype, and test. And I use that a lot in class, and I use that a lot in work as well. That's my 2-minute overview. You're muted, Stacy. You're muted.
Sorry about that. I thank you for that overview. And I said I definitely want to follow back up a little bit later about the traditional versus the progressive creative pedagogy that you stated during your presentation. So great, thank you. Let's go to Jason and Stephen. You guys conducted like an incredible collaboration dealing with virtual insanity and podcasting, teaching online, kind of the conversion from, say, paper to quote, or paper/analog to virtual, which we all found ourselves just body slammed into last, I guess, February of the year. It's like how incredible it would have been if we could have had these sessions prior to, and we would have been better prepared. But I think we are definitely moving forward in a much better position. So very curious about your findings. Give us your 2-minute synopsis of each, if you don't mind.
Yeah. I think in a lot of ways, Stephen and I's approaches and situations and demands are kind of, we're two spectrums, of the way that college has dealt with it. So I hope that it kind of pulls a wide range of things that are interested. In the video version of mine, I talk a lot about the specific tool. It's a cloud-based, browser-based DAW audio editor. This particular one's called Soundtrap. I feel like it's probably the most full-featured of some of the ones out there. But yeah, I'll let everybody, if you're interested in that, watch the video. I think for my 2-minute version, the thing that I'd like to say that I hope comes through in the presentation, the tools are great. And it's really important to have, useful tools. I mean, I'm sure we could all agree that that's true, the things that we found as we try to tackle this. But in my particular situation, what I really needed was a tool that would facilitate me helping my students, and so our situation, I wouldn't say it's necessarily unique, but it is probably different than a lot of the music production, music business programs out there. My students are high first generation college. The online is not like, they love the convenience. I mean, I've had many students tell me through this time they're the only person in their household that can work. So the convenience was not even a luxury; it was a necessity for them. But at the same time, online is not best for their learning style. And so I really needed a tool that could satisfy a lot of things. I needed a tool that would allow me, my students to access it and learn something starting from the very basics. The cloud share feature was huge for me, where the students could actually share their live project, and I could actually just go in and edit and manipulate their actual project rather than just kind of giving them tips on an exported MP3. But there was also a really big equity component. My students don't have computers at home that could run even Audition, much less Pro Tools, nor could they afford it. So having, something that was browser-based that would work. I mean, I had a student that did my entire podcasting class on a phone. Through the mobile app. Not ideal, wouldn't recommend it, but that was just their situation. And so I try to talk a lot about like the tool and the equity piece in mind, as well as some of the specifics in a situation where we just simply had to go fully online. And then Stephen talks a lot more about, how he had to adapt in-person instruction. I'll let him talk about that.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, we were fortunate. We had sort of 4 different protocols that we'd set up in terms of a pedagogical approach. The latter 2 were remote instruction, and we started our year off from the pretty hybrid, I would say. And then we moved to sort of the best of all options. So at our university, we were in person, and I probably didn't need to adapt as much as some of you did. But I will say there was a lot of things that we had to do, and I talk about that in our video. Just a few pieces to share in terms of how we adapted our strategy. This is totally aside from things like social distancing and flow through traffic flow through hallways and stuff. But you know, one of the classes I teach is music business revenue streams, and we talk about you know, obviously, you know, 70-80% of revenue for artists is the live show, which really has, as many of you know, shifted to being online for a lot of folks. You see folks like oh shoot, her name's escaping me, but very successful artist, Come to My Window. And she's doing 50 in online subscriptions for her online platform. And so we were able to do some things like creating a streaming concert that we never would have approached. We wouldn't have even attempted that. And I don't think most people attempted it because it was just like, well, we don't really need this. Yes, thank you, Melissa Etheridge. My 90s trivia, I failed. But things like doing streaming, I will tell you, ensembles, crazy. You know, talking about how do you do a voice ensemble with masks, and we tried that. I'll tell you, one of the things that's been most helpful is a pop filter. We've got like a dual membrane here. It's basically a mask, and what we were able to do in some instances were have folks separated by 10 feet and use this instead of the mask and project into this, and it just created a much more realistic way to do things. We still couldn't perform in person, but we were able to rehearse and not be hamstrung by that. So again, our videos online, you can see it. But just talking about how did we approach things from an in-person perspective during this time.
Fabulous. Thank you, both Jason and Stephen. You definitely gave us the wherewithal of here are the techniques of how to accomplish this through this incredible, challenging time that we just had. And that filter, that's pretty neat, very innovative. Thank you for that. Fruzsina, if we can, let's have you talk a little bit about the motivation of the music business students. And I know you did quite a comparison between the three countries, how they all look at it a little differently, especially I think in Hungary, it was the adult education is the only course that's offered, or that a music business course is offered through that program. So if you'll just give us a little highlight of your incredible and in-depth research, that'd be great. Thank you.
I wouldn't title it that way, but thank you very much. I think it was a bit clumsy. It was my very first research. You know, it's a process of developing your research profile, and I'm still on my way to that. So my research is basically about three countries: the UK, music business courses and students and their motivations, the German one, and the Hungarian students. I must say that there's a tiny difference between these courses, because the Hungarian is an adult education kind of course, not a higher education course, and it's important to be emphasized because there's a difference. Because they could work, you know, do not have any kind of student discounts, and I could go on. So it's a different kind of system. You also have to mention that there are differences between the educational system. So I've been reading for 2 years now, and what I know about the UK system is that sometimes they are not profession oriented. So they do have courses which do not end with a professional degree. I mean, you know, very, very much theory based, I would say. But in case of Germany, because of the private universities and because their initiative, and I would say that because of their aims, they do focus on the labor market very much. And there are two profound researches on German music business courses, and they do say, both of them, that in case of German courses, what we know is that they do build on student motivations, labor market, and they do work with the industry, which is not always the case in case of the United Kingdom. You can look into, for example, a report published in 2015 by the UK music industry body, and what they say there, it was done, the research was done by a King's College PhD student at that time, and what the report says is that in some cases these courses fail to fulfill their goal, and they don't provide the skills students would need. So it's a very good report. I do recommend that. And in case of Hungary, we are still developing music business education. That's why I'm doing my PhD, in order to learn from the best and study best practice. And I looked into motivations because we had a debate in Vienna. There's a music business conference, a research conference in Vienna each year. And I've been visiting that for 11 years now, or it might be 12, I don't know. And the thing is that sometimes we do have very theoretical debates, and you can see the difference in between the US approach and the UK approach, that they are very different. And sometimes even the European approach can be very much theory-based. And we had a debate there. Silvio Cobenu, who is a leader of the Leeds music business course, had a lecture on problem-based learning in music industry. It was a very fascinating and a very good presentation. And after that, we had a debate. And there was, I won't mention his name, he's a very good researcher, but we had a debate on whether students should possess the skills when they graduate. And that's why I'm very grateful for Joe's presentation. I loved it, because it's very important whether they are successful or not. And what I could figure, and that was my basic motivation, in order to that I wanted to explain my colleagues, or the people I have known for 12 years now, that these skills do count, and students apply to these courses because they want to work in the music industry. And what I could look into, and my conclusion was that they do really want to work in the industry, and that's why they go through a course. And we do have to be aware of that every time we design a course, every time we have a lecture with the students. It's very important. It's a very important thing, and that's why I'm looking into the connection between the courses and the labor market, because I think it must be very hands-on in order to have successful students. So that I won't go into my conclusions. Wonderful. Because I talked a lot, but thank you very much for your patience.
Yes. Okay. Great. Thank you. Yes, and I just want to take this moment to remind all of our conference or summit attendees that all of the researchers' videos are available for you. They're posted online along with their bio and in their institutional information. So by all means, please, to get a better and deeper grasp of what they're giving you an overview about, be sure to take time to revisit that. And then I want to ask our panelists if you are willing to share your contact information for those who are maybe interested in reaching out to you later to get more details. Okay, fantastic. As you know, this is a short session, so by the time everyone kind of gives their overview, and maybe we can take a couple of questions from the chat box, our time will be up. So thank you for being willing to share this with everyone. And on that note, Joe, I have to come to you because your research just stumped me. I think I need a private consult on the discussion about about impact and impasse. Just tell us about that.
And again, I want to really acknowledge each of my colleagues. It was so good to see how design thinking and Fruzsina's work around career-centeredness, and the work that Jason is doing, and Rob's work, and Steve as well, and Rob's work around like creating exciting, entertaining, educational models of instruction, all tie together to this thing. I'll be really candid with you, and that is that the higher education is at a black swan moment. The opportunities for us to begin to look at kind of new models of innovation do not necessarily just preclude delivery. It's in terms of design and the design thinking stuff that Todd's talking about, the work that Stephen and Jason are doing, and so what we need to be able to do is have a truth-telling moment. And here's the truth. And we saw it yesterday in the presentation by those students. The degree to dollar disparity has never been more significant. The questions that they're asking of what do I need? What did I get? Is it working for me? What did it cost? And what's it gonna, how am I gonna benefit from it? Have taken what has been traditionally, an outcomes-based model and moved it into what I believe is now going to have to become systemic analysis and root cause diagnostic work. And so the reason I called the presentation, what I did about improving student success capacity and readiness is that although we may be pointing one finger at the student, three are pointing back at us as the college. It is so easy to say that we are student ready. It is so easy to say that we are student-centered and then provide, anecdotal information on how that works and what this design, based on the work that Starfish and a lot of other kind of metric measurement organizations have done, is that it's essentially said to us, the vital signs of the institution have got to be measured, right? And so, the cost effectiveness and the efficiencies of what we do, the growth and enrollment patterns, the scholarship applications that both students and faculty can be a part of. Of course, the last presentation we just heard about faculty diversity and inclusion. But clearly, if we are student-centered, we've got to be at the center of the outcomes conversation around the ways by which we can support student success, not only from a remediation model, but before, during, and after their program, especially as it looks at how we can engage people in higher impact learning and earnings as a result of that. The work itself and that droning that I did with the traffic light, red light, green light, amber red, amber green, was really meant as a way of being for us to be able to take some kind of an assessment diagnosis around our current state. It is not in any way meant to be discrediting or minimizing the impact of what higher education and institutions have done. But in order for us to be able to move forward in this process, we've got to be able to make meaning out of what it is we do, how are we managing it, and how do we measure it. And the good news is that it's a conversation. The good news is that it doesn't have to sit on a shelf like so many strategic plans that have gone before. It gets to be this active, engaging process that begins to ask the question over and over again, what are we doing to create attraction towards this capacity for success? What are we doing to create that capacity for success? And this idea of readiness can be documented and demonstrated. And then ultimately, is it working for the collective us? Is it working not only for student success and retention, because we know it costs a lot to get a student and it costs a lot more to get a new student versus keeping a student. And if we can look for ways that we can measure the value of what the educational experience is in terms of the success, like the work that Fruzsina was doing, then what we can begin to see is that the kind of degree disparity dollar, shock can be reduced around it. But what it really means is for, faculty, administrators, and I would even suggest at some point the broader student community to be able to say, without a halo effect, here's where we're at, here's the current is, here's what we say the it is the it really there? And if it's not really there, how do we begin to look at the current state as a point in time to begin to articulate what that new design is? And boy, if that doesn't sound like design thinking the way Todd's talking about it, I don't know what is. And so, for me, the eye on the prize is student success, right? That's the outcome. But the feet on the street is the institutional capacity and readiness to truly commit to that more than just some narrative base. So
absolutely. Yeah. Yes. No, Joe, I totally agree. That's how we're all measured, our merit evaluations. What is our student success? That's how we maintain our jobs. That's how we look at approaching what are we going to discuss in our classroom, how we're going to design our courses. All of that is such an incredible component of what you're talking about. And I think my new favorite buzzword now is deliveryology. I had to work on it and practice it, but that really is what it comes down to. Can we deliver? We have to have those models to deliver. So you're correct about what Todd has done, Fruzsina, and then all three of your research, what you all hit on, it's all intersectional. I just love it. And then with Jason, Stephen, and then Robert, we're going to come to you. You guys are telling us, well, here's how you implement it. Here are the tools. These are the nuts and bolts to actually put it together. So with that, Robert, if you don't mind, give us your 2-minute spill. Sure.
Right. Thanks so much. COVID's been a catalyst to change. I don't think we're going to go back to the way things were in the entertainment or in teaching. And so I see, continuing to do a lot more online teaching myself. But I found that in my semester last year that students weren't retaining the content as well as I hoped. And some of them were making suggestions that I add more videos to give a human face to it. So I made this last semester the goal to improve my video making skills. And so I decided to incorporate techniques from the entertainment industry and also pedagogical techniques. So the question is, how do you get their attention and what do you do with it once you've got it? So we're in an attention economy. The students are watching TikTok. They don't want to watch our videos any more than they want to watch advertisements. So you have to do something just sensational to make them want to watch it. So I tried to make the videos work for small screens, using large fonts and few words. I tried to be brief and use music and sound effects and change the backgrounds and change the scenes so it wasn't always just the same image. I got a green screen and lights so that I could superimpose myself over the PowerPoint rather than just being in a little window off to the side. But I wanted to make it the workflow such that it wouldn't take me more than about 2 extra hours a week to make these videos because that's about all I could deal with. Fortunately, I already had the course designed, so I didn't have to prepare the content. But so I wanted to come up with a workflow where when I was through making the video, it was pretty much done. I wouldn't have to go and do a lot of editing. So I used feedback from student questionnaires after each video. I would ask them what they thought about the length, and I'd watch the usage stats. And I recorded everything with OBS, which allows you to switch scenes. So you can OBS is the key to this all. And then I would do a little editing if I really messed up badly in Camtasia, compress it with Handbrake so that the file space would be less for archiving, and then the video would be uploaded more. And then the other part of it was pedagogical tools, and they mostly come from Linda Nilsson, including mind maps, knowledge surveys, confidence estimates, where you ask people before you present a new subject how much they already know about it to kind of prepare their mind for it. And then confidence estimates, where when they ask a question, they rate themselves how sure they are of the answer. And that helps you find out, well, gee, maybe I didn't know as much as I thought I did. We all think we know more than we do. So these confidence estimates can make you realize that you don't really know everything already. And then just doing lots of memory recall and drilling, because I found that my general students every year, they don't understand the things that's in the bundle of rights for copyright. They don't understand the income streams, but the difference between mechanical and licenses and synchronization licenses. So I stop and drill as we're going through the videos. And in the future, I want to make it more interactive, where I stop and have them actually answer some questions. I encourage them to do that, but I don't monitor that to make sure they really do it. And I'm thinking of getting a teleprompter or something so I can just read the script. At the time that goes into making the script will reduce the amount of times I have to redo it and edit it. And I want to learn how to stream through OBS into Zoom and Facebook Live so I can do all this live. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Just for our tech attendees, I know there have been numerous tools discussed. Robert just mentioned OBS. Jason, you mentioned something about a fish, something that Spotify, I think, now owns.
Yes, Soundtrap is the name. Yeah. Soundtrap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Soundtrap. And let's see, Stephen, I know you had discussed about Canvas versus Zoom, I think, in the creation. So was there anything else that you recommended, say some of our other faculty or technicians maybe could use for maybe to put on their virtual concerts or for podcasting?
I would say just in terms of formative assessment, if you don't know about Kahoot, I'm sure most of you do. Kahoot's amazing. There was also Video Ant, video like ANT, which allows you to do annotations to things. Use that quite a bit. And then Flipgrid is just a great way to have engage in things without having to do just like papers or simple conversations. Sometimes students just like to post videos and things like that. So Flipgrid's really cool for that. So those are just a few that I would mention, as well as Edpuzzle. Edpuzzle allows you to have stopping points in your YouTube videos where they have to answer questions, which I found helpful.
Oh, that's all incredible. And someone mentioned earlier, we will not be able to go back to teaching as we used to. We've had now, over a year of our new technology. And of course, our students are such digital natives that they probably are so much more advanced than we are, of course. So any additional ideas or suggestions on educational tools moving forward? I know that's one of the questions from some of our attendees, because there's a feeling that a lot of students will be more tied to their devices, especially after all of this online learning. How will we ever get them back into the classroom and engage? So I'm just going to open that up for everyone.
Well,
go ahead, Jason.
As somebody that also teaches video, I have to say, Robert, I really applaud you. I mean, going that in depth, man, that's a lot. And just because I know that the MIA audience, many of you are, working musicians or have been, or, just appreciate gear in the spirit of things that save time. This guy here, if you can see it, I got my background on. This is the Shure MV7. It's billed as like the digital version of the SM7B. I don't know that it quite does that, but this one, and Rode has one that's cheaper, the NT USB Mini. Something I like about both of those microphones, obviously they're USB plug-in, but they both have a software, companion software, where you can add things like compression and a limiter, some different vocal effects. So for those of us that really care about that, it's a huge time saver to just have it go into the lecture sounding really good rather than have to run it through some kind of post-processing. Because with this, I'm pretty much able to do my lectures now, just straight through, and then I will compress them as Robert does with Handbrake. I can't say enough about compression. I mean, Handbrake's a free program, super easy to use. And if you need a motivation to use it, just keep in mind that there is an equity issue there. The more effectively compressed your lectures are, students with, that are watching on phones or that have limited internet, they don't have the high speed and all that. It really does help all students participate, to take that extra step.
Yeah, I just want to say kudos as well, Rob, to what you created. What an enjoyable visual and listening experience that was. Another version of the technology, I want to, really let folks know that about, was it 4 years ago now, Todd? Maybe even more? That Todd and I did an early adoption model of a design thinking model where we did a 36-hour hackathon. And the technology that was used was human technology. I mean, literally taking them through an entire design thinking, kind of process on a fire hose. And what we saw was that it was opened up to the entire Berklee community. And we had representation from every part of the school. We had music therapy teams, we had music education teams, music business teams, of course, and performers. And what we saw was in that 36-hour cycle, it started with, a general introduction, a little bit of academics. And then at the end of 36 hours, we had this Shark Tank event where someone actually won, right? And what we saw during that amount of time was that the technology of content into application, and application into some form of kind of content assessment on the part of the student, the return they got was significant. So, I think another part of the model, while people are, concerned about, do I really need this degree? It's really going to be, how do I create a degree of difference or distinction in terms of the core competencies, that I need, the critical thinking skills, the design skills, but also how and in what ways can, we as an institution kind of embrace kind of multiple modes of instruction, because maybe the answer isn't for everybody, as we heard yesterday. A lot of courses that, while they appreciated, they didn't necessarily value because it didn't provide that ROI, and so I think that the technology is also this kind of human capacity for learning piece.
Absolutely. Yeah, Robert, I definitely want to encourage everyone to go back and watch Robert's, because he actually interjects and gives you examples of this is how it's done. So it is definitely the practical 1, 2, 3. So for all of you non-techies, we have no excuse. We have incredible models by Jason and Stephen, and especially what Robert was able to pull off. So now you've got your pedagogy assignments from Todd, Fruzsina, and Joe, and then you got your technical aspects. So that makes it a completely well-rounded piece. We have another question here that we need to address. For the panelists, will you be combining more technology in your general teaching moving forward, now that classes are going back to on-campus learning? It's like we can't go back, as someone said.
Well, I want to make as much of the content as I can online. I try to make 2 what we're doing each week, but then another one, a content lecture, so that I can recycle those in different schedules so I don't have to redo everything. But I want to spend as much time in class with them doing things rather than listening to me talk. Mm-hmm. Try to distill down as much as I can and just make things brief, and then leave time in class for them to work together and do things.
That's great. You mentioned the new economy, about the attention economy. Now it's done, you said around, they're saying 8 seconds. Yeah, and if any of your, I was just going to say, if some of you have courses like we do at our institution, we have block classes that are 2.5 hours long. So about 15, 20 minutes in, I can start to see the glaze come over their eyes when they were there. And, it's like, what do you need to do? Cartwheels now to maintain their attention. So I think we do have to meet them where they are. And that is through technology. And with all the different learning styles, we have to do it all. Tactile, audio, visual, every single aspect of it. So let's see if there's any, I was trying to see if there are any other questions. If someone else wants to offer something while I look these up, go ahead.
Sure. Go ahead, I 2 things that one that I'll carry over. And something that I did really like about the tool that I talked about, Soundtrap, I mentioned earlier, the cloud based feature to be able to share the project. I actually found that process of a student, following an explainer video, working on a project, and then just being able to share the live project where I can see all the tracks, see all the edits. And then I can go into it, record a screencast of myself applying changes, and then they can just kind of follow along. I don't save the changes for them. They have to go back and execute it themselves. That's something that I would like to keep going forward. It's less confrontational than, in a lab situation where you're saying and other people can hear, so I think you get more honest questions, more honest feedback. And then it's just students responded really well to having feedback on their actual project, rather than just watching the explainer video and then trying to adapt it. If they get stuck, they really liked that. And then kind of tying in with what Robert said about being able to recycle, I think I will be able to recycle some of my content better by breaking the lectures down into the smallest possible component for kind of each idea. Whereas like I organize it the first time around more of like, well, let's just have enough stuff for this week and it's all in one. But I kind of realized, like, this could be 3 mini lectures. And if I recorded it that way, then I could kind of shuffle it around and it, because if anything, they're going to retain it better if it's in short videos and they can just watch one, get up, use the bathroom, work on something else, come back and do another one, rather than a 30-minute. I try to keep them all under 30 minutes, but really 3 10-minutes is better than 1 30-minute. So.
Excellent. Great. Thank you, Jason. Well, just to let everybody know, unfortunately, we have run out of time. This has been incredible research, reminding everyone that you have access to the videos. And of course, the panelists, their contact information is online. Thank you all for being a part of this year's summit. And just a reminder, we'll also be posting these videos on our YouTube channel coming up in a few days. And I think it'll be a great way to share this information with your students, along with other colleagues that may not have been a part of the summit, because this is incredible information that we all need. So unless there are any last thoughts or comments, I just, again, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and just continue to enjoy the summit. And again, thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Stacy.
Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.